Welcome to Lineups, Locks, and Loot, where we're just three dads in a basement drinking beer, talking sports. Episode 14 focuses on your fantasy lineups, week 13 DFS, and your betting locks with some garbage time at the end. I am Nick Dadig, along with Matt the Mig Hillwig, and we are absent with Pettit today. So our third leg of the tripod, he might have the COVID, and yes, it's still a thing. And yes, it might be affecting our good friend. But as you're all aware, we took a week off, and during that week, we decided that we're going to try this in a video form as well. So if you're a listener on Spotify, look for us on YouTube, and it should be under lineups, locks, and loot, episode 14. So hey, Meg, how was your week off?
That was good. Yeah, it was good. Spent some time with family, the usual go around. Thanksgiving's always a busy time for the Hillwig clan. We have a lot of places to stop, so a lot of travel, but it was nice, get a couple days out of work and just hang out with the fam and hang out with the boys.
I feel
How
like
about
any
you?
time's a busy time for the Hillwig clan, twin boys.
It really, yeah, it really is. I mean, there's never like, I don't know. As I mentioned a couple episodes ago, that my wife has started a photography business, and I recently got promoted. So we would have been busy without kids, and it just so happens that we also have twins. So there's not a lot of free time to be had, but it's good. Yeah, it's all good. It was nice to kind of, yeah, it was a lot of busy travel and stuff, but it was nice to sit back and relax for a few days. So
I'm very gullible.
but
Do you actually bathe your kids in a sink, or is that a joke?
no, we do.
Oh, wow.
Not every time. You know, it's it's just easier sometimes. We have a pretty big basin sink, and just stop the
I thought
drain
you'd
and
throw
make.
I thought you'd throw them both in the tub and just like shower head.
We've done that sometimes, and it's a toss up. Like one of them won't want a bath, and they'll be mad about it, and the other one will have too much fun, splash water everywhere, and try and climb out. So it's actually easier to do one at a time. Um, but we don't do it all the time. But when you're in a pinch and the kids need cleaned, then toss them in the sink, turn the water on, and you're good to go.
So on my Thanksgiving break, I was in Florida visiting my brother Steve and sister-in-law Olivia, and on Black Friday, me and Steve were left home alone with Charlotte, my daughter. If you don't know who that is, uh, which is not out of the ordinary. I've been alone with her plenty of times, but as you're aware, I have gout in one toe, which comes in and out every now and then, and then so we wake up and we go through the normal routine in the morning. Charlotte's really lethargic, which isn't herself. Normally takes about 10 minutes to wake up, then she's bouncing off walls like a crazy person. So Steve, never seen the morning routine before, thought it was all normal until she started throwing up on the couch,
Oh
myself,
boy.
and herself. So instantly a little worried, cleaned her up, cleaned the clothes up. No big deal with their babies. They do that sometimes. And then she was back to normal, or her normal self, jumping on the couch, all that stuff, and go to feed her. And when I'm feeding her, I'm barefoot and something's on the bottom of my foot, on my right foot, my gout foot. And I go to swipe the top of my left foot to get it off. And little did I know that something that was on my foot was about a quarter inch to a half inch shard of glass. So that glass went
Oh,
directly into my left big toe. So now I have a gout big toe and a glass big toe. So
oh
opposite to,
man.
like, unbelievable. The last 4 days I couldn't walk. I'm good now.
Yeah,
It's all healed
you're
up,
gonna be
but
Lieutenant Dan in no time.
ice cream.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's
I couldn't
unfortunate.
believe my luck,
Yeah, and
but
it
all
could
is
have
good.
couldn't have been the same toe. It already hurts. Why not throw some glass in there? Had to be the other
Yeah,
toe, the good toe.
maybe the glass would have drained the gout. I don't know, but and
Maybe, maybe. Isn't gout like all like acid of some sort that's in your
uric
system?
acid. Yeah,
Uric acid. Yeah, I knew there. I didn't know what the official term was, but
it's
um,
what the Joker fell in, a bat of uric acid. It's
no wonder he's so ornery all the time. Probably just has gout everywhere. Everything hurts.
I'd want to light the world on fire too.
Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, no, the break was good. A lot of good football. I do love my favorite tradition about Thanksgiving is the same thing I do every Sunday for half of the year is sit down and watch football all day. Um, but it's just different on
oh,
Thanksgiving.
let's talk about that for a second. So, I was in that DraftKings Survivor pool since week one. $1 would have won me 91,000. Only 1% of the people are left. Guess who I had on Thanksgiving Day?
Do you have the Lions?
I had the Lions. Not only had the Lions in the Survivor pool, if the Lions would have just straight up won, they're the last leg of a parlay, which would have won 300. And I now declare I hate Dan Campbell. I hate the Lions. I never did like Jameer Gibbs.
That's true. You never did. You never did. Yeah, I
So,
don't know what it is. I mean, I remember as a kid, the Lions never lost on Thanksgiving. And then as I got older, that's all that, well, when I got older, all they did was lose all the time. But they have like an atrocious record the last however many years on Thanksgiving, but they always play. But yeah, I was with you though. I thought this year was going to be different just because of how good their team is. And
and how bad the
um,
Packers were. Now,
yeah,
like back-to-back
right.
games of Jordan Love's doing all right. Like he might be a playable quarterback.
He might be. Yeah. I mean,
I'm not going to do it, but
nope, I'm not going to do it either. But yeah, it was interesting. I did have a good week of betting. I know we didn't really throw much out there. I threw a few anytime touchdown parlays together. I did manage to hit one of them, so I was riding pretty high coming into this week. So we'll see what happens this week. See what we got. But shall we kick it off into our listener question?
absolutely. Let's see what they
All
got.
right. So before I get into it, you can submit your listener question at Just Three Dads on X. Please get those in early in the week so we can answer them for you. If you have questions about the Thursday night game, make sure you get them in like Tuesday so we have time to read them over and get them out there for you. But we have a recurring guest for our listener question this week. Good old Twiggy Stardust. So, for those of you that don't know, Twiggy Stardust, he is one of our very best friends, and we have brought him onto the dark side of sports gambling and sports betting. Um, he's just getting started, so he asked for betting beginners, what are your favorite go-to bets? What are the ones you typically stay away from? And I thought this was a good question because Dadig and I here have very different philosophies on how we like to approach betting. I've tried to get Twigs into my way of thinking, and I think he has a little bit. But Nick, what do you think?
Well, like you said, we have two different philosophies. Mine is, do you want to see your bank account be green or red? And I, I like the green approach. I've been doing this betting thing for probably 10 years. Me and a group of buddies, about 13 of us, will get together every Sunday and just throw money around. So I learned a thing or two. But for the question, it says advice for beginners. So one thing you can get into is just look at every game this week. And if you say, I think this team's going to win, you'll see I have my DraftKings app pulled up. Let's just take the Lions. So you think the Lions are going to win. So click on just money line, ignore the spread. Okay, well, I also think that Chargers are going to win. You put those two teams together, all they have to do is win. And that's plus 109, which means if you spend $100, they'll give you $209 in return. Your $100 back plus another $109. So that's a simple way to begin. Is just pick two teams to win. It's not always going to be plus odds. That's one method. And another easy method to get started is, I believe it was you, Mig. You said just bet like it's fantasy football. So a lot of our listeners and a lot of our friends, they don't know gambling too much, but they do know fantasy football pretty well. And so who do you think's going to score this week? All right, well, bet on them. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be plus odds. So your $100 will get you another $100 on top of that. So would you like to elaborate on your moon shots?
Yeah, so I don't want to say that I'm new to the gambling side, but I am newer. I haven't done it a lot, but I have played fantasy football since probably 2008, maybe. I will say this: I won a championship one time with Vin Young as my quarterback. That's how long I've been playing fantasy football. So, um, Yeah, no, and I think for new betters, it, it's hard to risk a lot at the beginning because you don't feel like you know what you're doing. You don't want to put up the money to see the kind of return you might want. So, I don't necessarily recommend throwing in a bunch of like long, multi-leg parlays, but just like you said with fantasy football, grab a couple touchdown scores, guys you think that are going to score, maybe put two together, three together, even just do one with high odds. If you think they're going to score, you throw 5, $10 on it, not even anywhere close to a unit. You might win 30, $40, and then you get a little more comfortable. You do that the next couple weeks, you start, raising your units a little bit. And build up that way. That's what's been the most fun for me is putting together parlays. It makes, watching football on Sundays and Thursday and Monday as well a little bit more fun as you can kind of follow all the games. So, but I think obviously I think my advice is good advice, or I wouldn't give it. It's fun, but also to your point, Nick, yours is probably the most economical way to kind of build up, a bank account really with your betting. Like I don't promote bet in the house or anything every week. So what I like to do is I will put a little bit of money in my account, and then I try and let that ride as long as possible. So if I get some winnings, I only spend what I have in the account. That would be my advice for a new bettor, is to just try and work with $1 amount, like a certain dollar amount that you put in, and then try and build off that. So having said that, your method of betting is probably the best way to build up, and then mine's a little bit more fun.
Let's ping pong that back to me. You mentioned the safe betting, and I want to tell you what I do now and why I do it. So now what I do is I have a set amount, like money that you don't care about losing over the course of 18 weeks of betting on football. So this is your set amount. Let's just say it's $1,000. You put $1,000 in your DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever account, and then you don't put another cent in there. Then you just bet with that money, and at the end of the year, whatever you have, you cash out. You do the same thing next football season. Or if you want to bet hockey or baseball, okay, well, here's my funding for hockey now. Just do the same thing. The reason I do that is because many moons ago, before I had a beautiful wife and a child, I had a job that was 12 and a half hour long shifts, and I made decent money and had no life. And I remember sitting on my couch, which was a shared house because that's what we did in our 20s. And I was down like, I don't know, $800 on the day. And then I put $1,000 on the Cardinals to win. This is when Carson Palmer was their quarterback. So I put $1,000 on the Cardinals to win to make up for the 800. And like, it was not a moonshot, but they didn't. Anyway, I remember just grabbing like a fifth of vodka and just slugging it during the game, so much so that I passed out because I was just so nervous. In the end, they won. But I was like,
Hey, there we
okay,
go. That's what I was waiting
never
for.
again, never
Yeah.
again will I do that. I'm gonna be safe from here on out.
Yep.
But
Well, that's a
yeah,
good reason. That makes a lot of sense. And another thing I will add to being a beginner in the betting realm is make sure you're looking for, potential free bets or any promotional offers or anything like that all these new sports books put out there. I know recently we all just kind of got in on one. ESPN Bets is a new platform that was formerly Barstool Sports, and they gave away $200 for existing users. So you had a chance to place four $50 bets, which was essentially free money. So I would say take advantage of that. That'll kind of, you're not risking anything, but it's a potential for larger returns. So keep your eye out for those. They always have things out there for promotions and bets and odds boosts and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it's kind of all I have. It's betting. If there were a surefire way to do it, then we'd be getting paid to do this, or we could do this for free and not at 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday when we have to go to work in the morning. We'd be millionaires. So yeah, just have fun with it.
all right.
But
That
anyway,
brings us.
yeah, I was going to say, Twiggy, thank you for submitting your listener question. Again, you can have your listener question answered each week by submitting it to just 3 dads on X. What do we have next, Nick?
That brings us on to our special section of the day called No Risk It, No Biscuit. So this is specifically geared towards any fantasy football players. So as you're all aware, this week's deemed Bipocalypse. A lot of big name players on buys, such as Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley. Then we have other players such as Jonathan Taylor and Justin Jefferson, who we don't really know their status. Yes, they're announcing Justin Jefferson's coming back, but we're in the playoff push atmosphere right now. There's no friends right now. It is dirty play. We're going to do what we can to make the playoffs. And in order to make the playoffs and either go far in the playoffs, sometimes you need to take some risks. So we're not saying go out and do these things, but these are things that you could consider to help out your fantasy team moving forward in this playoff push. So we're going to name some players and maybe a brief discussion as to why we feel these players could help out your fantasy team. Mig, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so like you said, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson both on buys this week. They're fantasy juggernauts. They're a must start week in, week out. And they might even, a lot of folks who have those guys on their team might not even carry a second quarterback. But there is one knight in shining armor that's typically out there or sitting on a bench who could be a good replacement. I do, in fact, have him in one of my lineups this week, and that is Colts quarterback Gardner Minshew. He is a backup himself, getting the start, but going up against Tennessee's defense, we've talked about Tennessee a lot. They don't do very well against the pass, and the Colts offense really hasn't been anything to shrug off this year. They've been pretty good at moving the ball. Minshew has been solid. He's thrown for quite a bit of yards. The conversion rate might not be there. The turnovers are still there, but if you're in a pinch, that's why I like Gardner this week. Who do you have, Nick?
Yeah, I like the Gardner Minshew pick. I don't know if you realize in our league, that's who I picked up to replace Lamar Jackson because I'm one of those people that did not roster another quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'll stick with quarterbacks. Then I got a list of all different positions. Who I was back and forth with Minshew was Kenny Pickett. So Kenny Pickett doesn't really throw for 2 touchdowns a game. He also doesn't throw interceptions, which are two things that would turn you off. They play in Pittsburgh, which is typically bad weather this time of year. However, if anybody watched the Steelers game last week, it seemed like an entirely new offense. I don't think it was just a fluke. I think there's a lot of talent on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if Kenny Pickett is an elite quarterback by any means, but I do know that the Cardinals defense is not an elite defense. They're one of the best teams for any position to go against. And Kenny Pickett's going against them at home in a new offense. So if someone in your league already picked up Minshew, you might be able to replace that void with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I do like the Kenny Pickett pick. For 1 week, if you have to start a guy, he is someone that I think is worth giving a shot just because you don't know what you're going to get with the Steelers offense for the rest of the year. They did look much better. I'm sure most of you know that, they broke the Canada streak of, not gaining 400 total yards as an offense. The last time they did it was the last game before Matt Canada was hired. The next time they did it was the game after he was fired. So I don't think there's any coincidence there. They did use the middle of the field. The play calling really, there were no jet sweeps, which is a good start, but the play calling really didn't change a ton. I just think the sequence of plays and, the style of calling, the situational calling was a little bit more sound. And they used the middle of the field, which opens up the outside. It opens up the run game. Najee had a great week, and the run game being as good as it has been for the Steelers is only going to help Kenny Pickett. And I personally think like this week could be a good one, but over the next few weeks, we're going to see one of those big George Pickens games. He's due for one. There's too much talent there now that they're trying to stretch the field a little bit. Both Kenny and George Pickens can be a benefactor. But for this week against bad Cardinals D, yeah, I like Kenny too. I did have him down on my list. I'm going to stick with the same team for my next guy. Talking about buys and injuries, you heard about Jonathan Taylor. He's listed as doubtful, which doubtful, I don't think I've ever seen doubtful turn into playing.
He's having surgery.
Okay, so yeah, they still have him listed as doubtful, but yeah, he is then out. So yeah, his backup, Zach Moss. Zach Moss, I think, could have remained the starter and their offense would have looked about the same. He's been very good this year. So if you're, a team that had Zach Moss for the beginning of the year but didn't get Jonathan Taylor, if you held on to him, I've seen some leagues, especially like 10-man leagues. I know there's not a lot of those out there. He's still on the waiver wire. So if you held on to Zach Moss and had him riding on the bench, he's a almost a must start this week. And if you have the opportunity to pick him up off the waivers, I would do so.
Yeah, I'm hoping nobody slept on him on the waivers. I did see that he's 50% rostered, which is crazy to me. I thought he'd be at least 75 because he's still splitting when Jonathan Taylor was there. So hopefully you're fortunate enough to grab him off of waivers because it looks like Jonathan Taylor might be back by fantasy playoff time. It all depends on if the Colts are still winning. Uh, so I'll kick it over to a different position. This particular one, I texted a buddy earlier today in our 10-man league. You mentioned you don't hear this too often. The sixth seed is determined by the people with the worst record but have the most points. The top 5 records get in. And anyway, so Bobby Biceps he's like the villain of our group. We don't want him in the playoffs. We don't want him winning anything. And right now he's battling it out with someone else for most points. So I texted this guy and I said, "Hey man, you should pick up Greg Dortch." So the reason I said Greg Dortch is so he has back-to-back games with 8 and 9 targets. And when you look at those games, the difference between the previous ones is one, Kyler Murray's a quarterback, and two, Michael Wilson isn't playing. So he's default the number 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it. It's really looking like the number 2 wide receiver in Arizona. And Kyler Murray can air out the ball, and he does seem to like Dortch. If you remember last year, no one ever heard of the guy, and you hear the name Dortch, and everybody falls in love with him. So 8 or 9 targets going against a weak Steelers pass defense. Michael Wilson isn't announced out yet, but he did not practice today again. So it's really trending in that direction that he will not be in, which means Greg Dortch should be a playable person on your roster.
Yeah, now that Kyler's back, I mean, any of the Cardinals receivers are now a plug and play option. Yeah, Dortch gets a lot of the targets, but even Rondale Moore, he's kind of a deep threat, stretch the field guy. I think the last time he scored, he only had one catch all game, but it was a 40-some yard touchdown catch. So plug and play, you might get lucky with him for a week, but I do like Greg Dortch out of that group of receivers too. I'm going to stick with the receiver category and go against everything I've said about this team. If there is a bright spot, it's not even that bright, but he's been somewhat productive. Demario Douglas from the Patriots. Their offense is absolutely atrocious, but he's a heck of an athlete. He can catch the short passes and kind of make something happen. He does seem to get a lot of targets. And he's available in most leagues. I don't know what his percentage rostered is. I know he's kind of had an uptick in being rostered lately, but if you can find him available and you need to plug someone in for flex, I like Demario Douglas.
I'd like him too. I have him on 2 teams actually. I want to start him this week, but I don't know if it's going to clear concussion protocol. With that being said, if he doesn't clear concussion protocol, I actually have this guy for a spot start only this week. If Douglas doesn't play, if Douglas plays any game, you play him. Zappy's the equivalent of Mac Jones, so it doesn't matter. But they're always going to be playing from behind, and Demario Douglas is a target hog for them. But the guy I have for a spot start this week is Devontae Parker. I don't know if you watched last week. I think he had only 3 catches, 43 yards, but it seemed like they looked his way a lot. Which that's all you can ask for in the Patriots offense anymore.
Yeah,
but
right.
You're right now you're going against the Chargers, who has one of the worst passing defenses. And then if Douglas doesn't play, who's Mac Jones and Zappy or whoever they're going to put in quarterback going to target? It's not going to be Juju. Juju's awful. Hunter Henry hasn't seen a target in 2 weeks, I think. It's going to be Devontae Parker. So he could be a good spot start. After that, drop him immediately.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you might be thinking to yourself, like, why are these guys talking about Patriots receivers? Well, this is by Mageddon. I do have a league. In fact, it's not wide receiver. The wide receivers I'm having trouble with. Like, I'm starting Samaje Perine and Jerick McKinnon on the same team. this week. So if you're down that bad, that's why you're looking for guys like Demario Douglas and Devontae Parker. Just as an example.
Do you got anyone else? I got two more that I can give some brief shout outs to.
I had one more, and this one's kind of obvious, and he may have even made it into the starting role anyways. Kyler Murray. I know we talked about him that he may end up on a team that already has a good quarterback, and if that good quarterback they have isn't someone who's on a bye this week, I'm in a lot of leagues, too many. I know I've talked about it before, but he's still out there in some. But if he's a guy riding the pine, then I think he's a great start this week against Steelers defense. If you have to do it, that's the last of what I had this week.
All right, then the next one I'll talk about, I'll just stick with the same team. This is questionable. I'm not going to say throw this person in your lineup. I'm going to say keep this guy on your radar, and his name's Michael Carter. He was dropped by the Jets, signed by the Cardinals. Didn't really do much for me. You still got James Carter and what's that E something? I can't pronounce his name.
It's a long
Marcardo or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, DiMarcardo.
Yep.
But if you watch the last game, Michael Carter played 3 less snaps than James Conner, and he ran more routes. And then they dropped Keontae Ingram, and now he's getting acclimated to the Cardinals offense. So they're showing signs that Michael Carter could be involved in this offense. Once again, I would not put him in your lineup, but just keep an eye on him. Then the other guy I have is not going to help you this week because he's on bye, but Keaton Mitchell led all running backs in snaps last game. So he out-snapped Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and when he touches the ball, he is a much better running back than the other ones. The Gus bus is probably going to still get short yardage and goal line, but Keaton Mitchell, he's electric, and he's kind of their J.K. Dobbins that they're looking for. He's a speedster, and it looks like they're starting to trust him more. And yeah, he's a rookie, but now we're on to week 13, and I think he's going to be a little more involved and understand the offense a little better. And he could be a guy that wins you the playoffs, honestly.
He could. Yeah, he definitely could. One guy that I forgot about actually until right now is, and now this is a deep stretch, is DJ Dallas. He's going to be backing up Charbonnet. It doesn't look like Ken Walker's going to go this week. I know they're playing right now. Doesn't help you, but
Charbonnet got in the end zone.
Yeah, right. And that's what I mean. Like if you're really struggling, I still don't know what Ken Walker's availability is going to be moving forward for next week. But he's a guy to keep an eye on too. That's all I have. On to the next.
On to the next, which is DFS lineups. So every week, with the exception of last week that we took off, we face off against one another in DraftKings. The rules are simple. We have 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a flex position, a tight end, and a defense or special teams. Pettit is not with us today, but he did send me his lineup. I'm trying to pull it up now as we speak. And with that being said, we keep stats on these things as well. So right now, I have 5 wins. Mig has 3, and Pettit has 3. Despite me having 5 wins, Mig has the most total point average with 134. So if you want to tail us into quarterback position, you would want to tail Pettit, who's averaging 19 points per game per quarterback. If you want to tail the running back position, that is also Pettit with 17. Wide receiver is myself with 17. Tight end, Pettit 16. And defense, Mig with 10. Don't ask me how Mig has the most total point average, and yet only wins in the defensive category. That's just the way the math works. Must finish second a lot in the different categories. So since we didn't air last week, I do want to give Mig the chance to toot his own horn. He blew us out last week. He had 164, and the next closest points was 117. This is 2 weeks ago, not last week's lineup. So you want to say anything, Mig, or are you just going to just take the high road, act like you've been there before?
I will say that I did mention when I read my lineup off last week that it was a working man's lineup. There were no flashy picks. It was just all slow and steady guys that you're going to get you're going to get the same thing every week. They're not going to go out and knock your socks off, but they're going to be slow and steady. And that's what I did in pretty much every player I picked last 2 weeks ago was slow and steady, but it got the job done.
And that one won money in the $1 Million Maker as well. That makes all but 1 week that we entered a lineup that would have hit your $1 Million Maker lineups. So coming off your victory, who do you have as your quarterback this week?
I never thought at the beginning of this season I would have this guy as my quarterback in fantasy. I never thought I'd even talk about him.
Say it.
Russell Wilson.
Ah.
Broncos quarterback going up against Houston this week. Houston's pass defense is ranked 27th. I can see this game being a bit of a shootout. And believe it or not, Russell Wilson has a 103 passer rating. His touchdown to interception ratio is one of the top, I think, 2 or 3 in the league. He's been pretty darn good. He's still just as annoying as he ever was, but I don't know. I kind of like him. So yeah, Russell Wilson, and you can get him for $5,700 on DraftKings. So it's a cheaper option. That's more of the reason why I went with him.
Yeah, I think that game has the second highest, tied for second highest over under of the week too, which I don't quite see it, but Vegas knows more than I do. Anyway, that's as much as I hate to admit it, that's a good pick. I was actually teeter-tottering between him and 2 others, and I ended up going with the White Wolf, Sam Howell. Sam Howell, I love the guy. I picked him up in my big money league, and since I picked him up, he has 5 games in a row where he has over 20 fantasy points. They're facing the Dolphins, which in Washington. I have no expectation of Washington winning the game. I do have every expectation of the Dolphins lighting up the scoreboard and Sam Howell just chucking it left and right.
Yeah, it might be garbage
that's
time in the second quarter.
That's what I'm looking for. Garbage time, Sam Howell points. And I think Pettit agrees with me because his quarterback is also Sam Howell. So we see eye to eye there.
The one time I've picked Sam Howell, I think 3 times this year, and the one time I don't, it would have been a lock.
I really thought you were going to say Sam Howell. I was getting really excited. I was even considering howling.
I do like Sam Howell a lot, though.
Pettit's running backs, he has Rachaad White and Zach Moss. So Rachaad White, he's facing the 30th ranked rush defense in the Carolina Panthers, that is. And he's also a good receiver at the running back position as well. And it seems like he's had a lot of uptick. He's on a 6-game streak of 15 plus points. I only know those stats because I also have Rachaad White. And so Pettit picked Zach Moss. I think you mentioned earlier, Zach Moss is a must start in the absence of Jonathan Taylor. He's going to get fed the ball probably, I don't know, 90% of the carries, I would assume. I don't know who his backup is. I did know his
Trey
former
Sermon.
Bronco. I was going to say former Bronco. I couldn't remember the name. Yep.
Yeah, Trey
and
Sermon.
then my other running back with Rachaad White is Raheem Mostert. So the Dolphins have the highest implied total on the week. So I won all kinds of bits and pieces of that game. And Washington's defense is not the greatest, even against the run. And he has back-to-back games with 20-plus carries. Devon Achane is expected to be back. But last time he came back a little early, he got injured right away. So I picture them being a little more cautious with him, which would give Mostert the ball more. And Ahmed is on IR. So I'm thinking he'll be heavily involved. Mostert, that is. Who do you have at your running back position?
So I went with the hot hand, Najee Harris. I like him against Arizona this week. Yeah, the Steelers did stretch the ball a little bit down the field, but it was still run heavy, and I don't see that changing. Arizona's defense is not great, especially their run defense. So I do like Najee to continue this week, and it looked like he kind of took the torch back from Jaylen Warren last week. He looked great. So I'm going to count on that to continue, and he's not very expensive at $5,200. My second running back, I went with the guy I talked about earlier, and Pettit has him as well, Zach Moss. He's only $4,600 right now on DraftKings, and Yeah, like we said, he's a must start. He's going to get the bulk of the carries. He's been great as a starter so far this year, so I don't see any reason why he wouldn't.
Yeah, I love the Steelers. Both Steelers running backs this week. I no spoilers. I don't have them, but there are another ones. I have like five different lineups, but this one I'm reading off in this group is also what I have in the $1 million maker. I don't see me changing it unless Michael Wilson plays, because at my wide receiver position, I have previously mentioned Greg Dortch. So if Michael Wilson plays, just telling the listeners, I'm removing Greg Dortch from there, probably inserting Devontae Parker, assuming that Douglas doesn't play. But this lineup will not change for the sake of our internal competition. Greg Dortch, I'm not going to talk anymore on him because I already have. My second wide receiver, I have Deebo Samuel. So right now they have the third highest implied total going into the week, and they're going against the worst pass defense in the Philadelphia Eagles. Uh, so Debo's kind of uncomfortable about him because you never know who's going to get all the love in San Francisco. It could be Ayuk, could be Kittle. It will be McCaffrey, but who's sharing it with him? So I'm really hoping it's Debo this week. And then my last wide receiver, I have Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill's battling an injury. I don't think it's going to withhold him from playing. I don't think it's going to withhold snaps, but uh, once again, highest implied total. Jalen Waddle's coming off a pretty good performance. So hopefully he can repeat that. Meg, who do you have at the wide receiver position?
So, recurring theme of this segment with us, I always take a stack with my quarterback, and I went with Cortland Sutton, who has quietly kind of came back to form this year. He's really taken over the top role from Jerry Jeudy, who was pretty good last year. But I think Sutton's like top three, maybe top five in uh, receiving touchdowns this year. So, like I said, I think that game's going to be a bit of a shootout. And if Russ is going to throw a few touchdown passes, I think Sutton's sure to be the one. I also have Tyreek Hill for all obvious reasons. Um, Tyreek's a monster. I don't see them slowing down at all this week. And then my third receiver, I went with a cheaper option, kept it in the same game, Curtis Samuel. I think Samuel's kind of taken over a more involved role in that Washington offense than like Jahan Dotson. Um, he had 100 yards last week. He gets a lot of targets, short passes, good, good yards after catch guy. I think you can get a handful of points out of him. So yeah, Tyreek Hill, Curtis Samuel, and Cortland Sutton are my receivers.
Yeah, I had Curtis Samuel in and out of my lineup as well to stack with Sam Howell, but I don't know, I couldn't get the stick. At Pettit's wide receivers, he has Adam Thielen. So I will speak that Adam Thielen, yeah, he's in a slump. But right now they're facing off against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think over the past 3 weeks they allowed the most passing yards, maybe 4 or 5 weeks total. But Buccaneers are allowing a lot through the air. So and they just fired their head coach, and so that normally results in a team playing differently. I'm assuming it would be better because it's hard to be worse. At his other wide receiver, he has Marquise Hollywood Brown. Uh, Brown, another guy that's underperforming, but this is a get right game for him going against the Steelers. We mentioned earlier Michael Wilson could be out, and then the Steelers' pass defense is not the greatest when it comes to letting fantasy points up. And then his last wide receiver, he has Josh Downs, the electric rookie of the Indianapolis Colts. Tennessee, another team that has a poor pass defense, and we mentioned how much we like Gardner Minshew this week, so I'm assuming that has something to play with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Mig, who do you have as your tight end?
So for my tight end, I stuck around with the same game we talked about earlier. I took Pat Fryermuth. He came alive last week, his first noticeable game this year. I know he was hurt for a while, but I think he's going to be the Heath Miller to Ben Roethlisberger he's going to be a security blanket. So I think you're going to see high targets. You might not see 120 yards and um, like he did a week prior, but I do see him being a major part of that offense this week. And you can get him for $4,300. So I like Pat. He's a good athletic tight end. I think he, on a lot of other teams, he'd be one of the top end tight ends. He has the potential to. So hope he keeps up with that this week.
Pettit agrees with you. He also took Pat Fryermuth, but for the second player, you each had Moss. Now you each have Fryermuth, and then I ruined your locks as well. I went
Zagger.
with some. I went with someone a little cheaper, Juwan Johnson, and quite frankly, I'm really excited that we haven't talked about the Saints yet because I did have a good things to say about Juwan. So last week he had the most routes run by tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, you name it, on the Saints. He had the most routes run. So that's Juwan Johnson we're talking about, not Chris Olave, not Alvin Kamara, Juwan Johnson. So as everybody's aware, Michael Thomas is on IR. Rashid Shaheed does not look like he's going to play. Chris Olave's status is up in the air. So a lot of people are thinking A.T. Perry or the other guy. I don't even know his name, but there's another guy on the
Rashid
Saints.
Shaheed.
No. He's Rashid Shaheed's out. There's A.T.
Oh, is he
Perry.
out? Yeah,
Not
no,
officially
A.T.
yet,
Perry's a
but he will.
rookie.
A.T. And then I can't. The other guy, you probably don't know him either. I think his last name starts with a G. He's just. I have no idea who he is, to be honest
I
with
got
you.
nothing.
But he's going to be the wide receiver too if Olave can't suit up. If Olave plays, it's Olave, A.T. Perry. Then yeah, you'll see a lot of Alvin Kamara looks. But I think Juwan Johnson's gonna, or Juwan. I keep saying Juwan. Juwan Johnson is gonna. He's gonna
Juwan
eat up.
Johnson.
I think he's gonna eat up the middle of the field, and for only $3,400, he's the player I'm most excited for on my roster. To be honest with you, uh, who do you have in your flex?
I have Brandon Ayuk going up against. We talk about the Niners receivers a lot, whether it's going to be Kittle, McCaffrey out of the backfield, or Debo. Um, but Ayuk does seem to be, Purdy's preferred target if he's there, and we've seen Philly struggle to stop the pass all year, even though they're, what, 10-1, 9-1 now, whatever it is. I don't know. They're good. But
Yeah, that are good.
yeah, they're good. But I do like Brandon Ayuk this week. He's $7,200, but could be another shootout game like we saw with Philly and Buffalo last week.
Yeah, I was like I mentioned earlier, you never know who you're gonna get. And I wanted Ayuk, but because his price tag was, I don't know, like $800 more than Debo, and then I was thinking maybe Jalen Ramsey's gonna be on Ayuk the whole time, hopefully, so that Debo gets it. But that's what scared me away from him. Pettit went with someone pretty expensive, Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler coming off, I think, back to back poor performances, but I absolutely love Eckler. I think this is going to be a high scoring Eckler week this week. There's just so many players I like this week. I couldn't afford Eckler. But I think that's a good start going against the Patriots. I don't trust him so much as a rusher this week, but I think he's going to get a haul of receptions. Could be even a 100-yard receiving game for the guy. In my flex, I have another guy in that same game. I have Ramondre Stevenson. Also very excited to start this guy. I'm assuming that Demario Douglas isn't going to be in due to his concussion. That leaves Devontae Parker as their primary wide receiver, which, in my opinion, that leaves Ramondre Stevenson as their primary receiver. They're also facing a bottom pass defense, and the Chargers haven't been that great against the run. Quite frankly, Stevenson's about the only talented weapon that they have on that team. All right, Mig, you're the defensive champ. Tell us, who should we start in our defense this week?
I went with the LA Rams going up against the Cleveland Browns. I'm not sure who their starter is this week. It might be Joe Flacco. I doubt it. Could be PJ Walker. DTR got hurt. We know Deshaun Watson's out. They struggled to move the ball a little bit. So I like the Rams. The Rams defense it's not obviously what it was, but they still have some, game wrecker abilities. They have a lot of ability to turn the ball over. So yeah, I went with the Rams, and you can get the Rams for $3,700. So I went cheaper option this week, but I do like the Rams.
That's a good start. Uh, Pettit went with the Atlanta Falcons. So they're facing the Jets in New York, and the over-under is 33.5. So a very low over-under game. Additionally, if you watch the Jets, Tim Boyle's their quarterback. Zach Wilson's their third string. Like, you think it couldn't get worse than Zach Wilson, but it does, and it's called Tim
Yeah.
Boyle. So
I don't know why they don't go with. They also have Trevor Simeon, right?
yeah, but they don't. I don't even think they have him listed. I think there might be something wrong with him that's not being announced because they signed him early. They signed him, I want to say
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Oh, I thought they signed
Uh,
him after Rodgers got hurt, like a few weeks after Rodgers got hurt to just, be a third quarterback on the roster, behind
that very
Wilson.
well
But
could be it.
I,
Yeah.
I think he's the better option if he's available to go. But like you said, he might not be. But either way, if it's Tim Boyle, then Falcons D's a good start.
Yeah. And I went with, so I always got made fun of on this pod for going with basically the cheapest defense, but I've learned in several lineups that that doesn't work because they often get you 0 points. So I went with the Indianapolis Colts this week. They're not a hot start this week, but Will Levis, it's not the greatest of quarterbacks. I don't expect this to be a high scoring game. The Colts defense has played relatively all right lately. I'm not overly excited about it, but I don't know. Maybe later on I'll flex down to the Rams or something like that. I did like that pick. All right. So now I'll read down Pettit's lineup top to bottom. So if you didn't catch it first try, here we go again. As his quarterback, he has Sam Howell. At running backs, he has Rashad White and Zach Moss. Wide receivers, Adam Thielen, Marquise Brown, Josh Downs. The tight end, Pat Fryermuth. Flex position, Austin Eckler. Defense, Falcons. My quarterback is Sam Howell. Also, running back, Raheem Mostert. Rashad White. Wide receivers are Greg Dortch, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle. At the tight end, I have Jawan Johnson. The flex position, Ramondre Stevenson, and defense, the Indianapolis Colts. How about you, Mig?
I have Russell Wilson, Najee Harris, Zach Moss. Receivers are Tyreek Hill, Curtis Samuel, and Cortland Sutton. Tight end is Pat Fryermuth. Flex is Brandon Ayuk, and Rams defense.
Very good. Takes us over to our next section, ATS and teasers, where each week we pick one team against the spread, keep records on it, and then we move in the teasers. I typically lead that off. I have a prime, a day, and a 6 point, where Mig and Pettit each give 6 point 3 team teases. So our against the spread records right now, I am 4-7, Mig's 4-6, and Pettit is 3-8. So against the spread, we are not doing too well. Which is it blows my mind right now because I'm in a pick'em league at work where you pick every game against the spread, and my win percentage right now is 70%, which is insane. So I have no idea why I'm so bad on the air, but in this pick'em league, I'm doing really well. Anyway, I digress. Mig, who do you have this week against the spread?
So this week against the spread, I took the Chargers at -5.5 over the Patriots. The Chargers offense, having the potential to be as good as they can be, it's got to come out at least once, and their defense has to hold up the end. And I think it's a perfect game for that. I do see a potential for the Chargers to blow out the Patriots, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 24-21 game and the Chargers lose, because that's what they do. They lose. But I do
They're
like them
so
this
good
week.
at it.
Yeah, I do like them this week. I like all their weapons. So yeah, I took the Chargers at -5.5 over the Patriots.
All right, Pittsburgh fans, don't boo me, but I have the Cardinals at +5.5 to cover. I do think the Steelers are going to win. Well, I'm just saying that because I'm a Steeler fan. I actually think the Cardinals are going to win this game, but I think they're definitely going to cover +5.5 points. I really hope the Steelers win. I don't see them winning by more than a field goal. But my against spread pick this week is the Arizona Cardinals. Moving on to teasers. So my primetime teasers. So primetime teasers right now, I got to pull up the overall record, but it is pretty ridiculous how well we're doing on the primetime. We're 8-3 with an overall win of 516%. So if you put $100, you're up $516 right now. This week, primetime bets. I've changed it up the last couple weeks. I don't always use 10 points. This week I didn't either. I have the Cowboys at -2.5. So I posted this on Twitter, by the way, earlier today. Cowboys at -2.5, which right now it's not looking great because Seahawks keep marching down the field. Chiefs at +3.5, and the Jags at -2.5. That one is +100. For my day teaser, I did use 10 points for this spread. I have the Titans at plus 11, the Rams under at 48.5, and the Eagles at plus 13. So the Titans at plus 11. The Titans are undefeated on their home turf. If you look at the standings, you'll see that they're 4-1. Ignore that one that was played overseas, not on their home turf. The Colts won by more than 11 once. So I'm liking the Titans at home. It's always scary putting money on the Titans because they don't know how to move the ball too well, but they're a very well coached team. They somehow find a way to win games. Rams under 48.5. The Rams home games are 4-1 with this bet. So 4 out of 5 home games were under 48.5, 7-4 overall. The Browns, all their games together, 9 out of the 11 were under 48.5. Now we mentioned that Joe Flacco could be starting for the Browns. It's looking very likely he will be. Joe Flacco, I believe in more than DTR or PJ Walker. However, he just took off his sweatpants and put on some knee pads. I don't think he's quite ready to play. Eagles at plus 13. Eagles only lost by 11 once this year. Their biggest loss this year was 11 points. So they haven't lost by 13 or more. Other than that, no loss greater than 10. They're 3-0 against winning record teams this year. No, I disregard that. They're 5-0 this year against teams with a winning record. And the Eagles are 12-2 at home over the last 2 years. So they're at home. The spread really worries me in this game. That 49ers might put up a lot of points, but I'm hoping 13's enough for the Eagles. If I saw the spread was Eagles minus 2.5, I'd be all over that, not think it twice. But since they have the 49ers favored in this game, it makes me really nervous. My 6-point 3-team teas, I have the Buccaneers at plus 1, Cardinals at plus 11.5, and the Chargers at a pick. So Cardinals at plus 11.5. Steelers haven't won a game by more than 7 this year, and they only won by more than 10 once in the last 2 years. Kyler Murray as a starter has one loss by more than 10 in the last 2 seasons. It was against the Rams. As for the Bucks plus 3.5, the Bucks are 3-1 against teams with a losing record. Their only loss was 3 points. The Panthers' only win this year was by 2 points, but once again they fired a head coach, so there's an outlier there that you might see a different Panthers team. And then lastly, the Chargers at a pick. That one to me is just that they have to win. They can't keep doing what they're doing. It's the Patriots, for crying out loud. They're a joke of a team this year. And Meg, what do you have for your 3-team 6-pointer?
Yeah, so for my 3-team 6-point tease, I also took the Chargers at plus half a point. They have to win, like you said. It might end up being ugly because that's what the Chargers do. They take a good situation and turn it into a potential disaster, but I'm hoping they come out on top. So I kind of took your logic that, the Steelers playing close games, but I do like them to win this week. So I teased the Steelers up to plus a half point. And on top of that, I like the Colts. So I took the Colts at plus 5 over the Titans. So
Or an opposite ends, huh?
We are, yeah. So we'll really see what happens this weekend. But yeah, I took the teams that I like to win and kind of got them into a position where I feel comfortable. So that's why I like my teaser.
Nah, so last episode I mentioned that I apologize to listeners that I say these bets on the air and then I kind of change them before kickoff due to different circumstances. However, I liked this particular bet so much that I placed it already. So no lies there. My big bet of the week is Cardinals plus 10.5, Bucks plus 3.5, and Titans plus 10.5. So I took a mix of what I mentioned there, manipulated spreads a little bit. So that's plus 103. That one I hammered money down. So no takebacks on that. That would roll us over to our next section, props, and our touchdown score of the week. Someone that we like to consider is Sixy, and we know it. All right, Meg, do you have any good props this week?
I do. This is probably my favorite segment because I do love prop bets. So this is a weekly special game we just talked about a little bit, the Patriots Chargers game. So you can get for plus 850, Justin Herbert over 1.5 touchdowns, Keenan Allen receiving touchdown, and Austin Eckler rushing touchdown. So if all of those things happen at plus 850, you're good to go. But that's the only prop I had for this week. I do have another one, but it's more of a long shot, so I'm gonna keep it for a long shot. What do you have, Nick?
All right. I had three, crossed out one before we went on air. My first prop I have is Sam Laporta over 50 yards receiving, and it's plus 140 odds. So tight ends are averaging 57.5 yards receiving the last 4 weeks against the Saints. The Saints are allowing, I believe it's the most receiving yards against any team over the last 4 weeks. So the Saints pass defense is kind of falling apart. And the Lions really need a win. So I'm expecting Sam Laporta to be a recipient of a lot of targets. The other prop I have is Austin Eckler's longest reception is over 13.5 yards. That's at minus 100. And on the note of props, right now, Mig is taking the cake. If you put $100 in every prop Mig gave you, you'll be up $1,149. He hit a couple moonshots in there. It's not luck. If you hit him twice, and he did just that, I'm up $3 and bet it's down. That's excluding our touchdown scores a week. That's just the random props that we throw out to you. Mig, who do you have as your touchdown score of the week?
Yeah, it's a guy I talked about earlier, and I warned you before we started to record that I'm going to talk about the Broncos a little bit this week, and went with Cortland Sutton to score this week. You can get him at plus 215 for any time touchdown. I do think that game's going to be a bit of a shootout, and I'd like him to be on the receiving end. So yeah, Cortland Sutton at plus 215.
So I did have Javonte Williams as my touchdown score of the week, and I switched it earlier today. So I'm glad I switched it because I hate him. Um, my touchdown score of the week is Sam Laporta at plus 170. On that same spread I just talked about with the Saints, they also gave up three tight end touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. So I'm really liking Sam Laporta this week. I don't know how I feel about the Lions yet after they broke my heart last week, but that's who I have. So our touchdown scorers of the week right now, I'm 6-5, Pettit's 5-6, and Mig is 6-4 record wise. I'm up $247. Pettit's up 380, and Mig's up 385 on those. If you want to tail us, that brings us on to our next section, long shot parlays. This section particularly makes me miss Pettit. A long shot parlay for us is anything with plus 500 odds or more. And between Pettit and Mig, I can't enunciate half the things they put out there, but it's always interesting. So let's hear what you got this week for your long shot.
So this week, I kind of took Pettit's role a little bit and did an anytime touchdown score parlay. The week we didn't record, the week of Thanksgiving, I did hit a couple anytime, 3-leg anytime. But I decided to add another leg this week.
Is this like a fishing story?
What's that?
Is this like a fishing story? I did hit a couple whenever we didn't air, but
Yeah,
you should have saw the fish I caught. It was this big.
Yeah, it was. I sent you the bet slip.
Yeah, you did actually.
I did.
So
well, just for one, but so yeah, for this week, I have 4 touchdown scores. I went with Tyreek Hill against the Commanders, Keenan Allen against the Patriots, David Montgomery, and Najee Harris all to score a touchdown for a whopping plus 1,377. So 1,377.
I will be telling you on that one. I absolutely love that. Those are all very
I like
likely.
it a lot. Yeah, and David Montgomery, I believe, was a part of the one I hit over Thanksgiving. He's just a machine. When they're in the red zone, he's the guy. So, but yeah, I like all those guys this week. So, pretty happy about that one.
Before I read off mine, I want to give a quick shout out to Pettit. He did hit his long shot our last episode. His long shot on the air was Rondell Moore and Tank Dell touchdown for plus 650. So he did hit that. That makes 2 total long shots we hit on air so far. For for my long shot parlay, I did Sam Howell with 275 plus yards passing, Debo Samuel touchdown, and Kelsey touchdown. That is plus 986. The only one I'm worried about in that is Debo once again. So those are our long shot parlays. That brings us over to the underdog pick of the week, where we pick a team that's an underdog, so +1 to plus, I don't know, 17 or whatever you have the Giants at every week, to just outright win the game. So our underdog records are myself 5-6, Pettit 2-9, Mig 3-7. So since I'm kind of the hot hand in this, I'll lead us off. And my underdog pick of the week this week is the New York Jets. They are at home against the Atlanta Falcons. So I don't know. I think both teams are bad. Just the Tim Boyle thing, I really can't wrap my head around it. Maybe they saw something in him, and that's why they start him. And he just needed a game or two to get it out of his system. Plus, you see Aaron Rodgers practicing, so maybe he's thinking that they're going to win some games and be in the playoff contention. I don't know. But I have the New York Jets to beat the Falcons. How about you, Mig?
Well, sticking on the train that I hopped on at the beginning of the episode, I have the Denver Broncos to beat the Houston Texans. They're, I think, +3.5. Yeah, like pains me to say how well Russell Wilson is playing. They have a lot of big wins on the year. It's going to be a good game. I hope. But yeah, Denver Broncos +3.5 over the Texans.
Just wrong light. I just saw there's a shadow on my face this whole time. I was like, I wonder if I turn on the other light, if anything will happen. Anyway, you sure do love the Broncos this week.
Yeah, it's the only time ever. So if you're a Broncos fan and you listen to us, this is the time to ride with me. I shouldn't say ride because it's going to backfire because of Russell Wilson, but yeah, let's go Broncos.
We're so good at Broncos bets on the air.
Oh yeah, I did say that earlier. I wanted to mention the last time one of us, and I won't mention who, dating, love the Broncos. They had 70 points dropped on them. Hoping that doesn't happen again. Possible. But yeah, take that information and do with it what you will. But I like the Broncos this week.
I can see it. That brings us over to our final section of the day, titled Garbage Time, where we can discuss anything and everything we want to. It could be sports. It doesn't have to be. Big, what do you got for us today?
So I did have one, and I'll save it. I'll save it until all three of us are here. But our good pal who submitted the listener question this week, Twiggy Stardust, asked, "Did Aaron Rodgers really tear his Achilles?" Now, Aaron Rodgers is what, 39 years old. He's an odd guy. We all know that. But if he really tore his Achilles, why is it that these other, I would say superior athletes they're done for the season guaranteed, and he's looking to be back here in a few weeks. Did he really tear his Achilles, or is it like a publicity stunt? Did he want to, I'm sure he actually got injured. I don't think he'd fake it for this long and just come back. But did he really tear his Achilles and then come back early just to, give himself a pat in the back, make himself look superhuman, to promote ayahuasca maybe? I don't know. I do think there's some validity to the conspiracy theory that maybe he did not actually tear his Achilles. What do you think?
I think that well, he's 39. I'm 35. And if I get off this bar stool improperly, I'm probably going to sprain my ankle. So I, th- I think that he might have actually tore his Achilles. Just like when you see other players, did Barkley tear his, or did he tear something else?
I thought Barkley was knee when he got
I
hurt.
don't. Yeah, I don't know. He's always hurt. But I'm trying to think of comparable people that tore their Achilles and how long they were out for. I'm assuming it was season long. But there's less. I don't know. There's less cuts and speed required of a quarterback. So maybe the healing process is the same, but the requirements to get back to work is a little different. I don't know, but he is a prima donna that loves the spotlight. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if it was like a high ankle sprain that and he's like, okay, I'm too old for this, and then just come and hey, let's do a photo op in the hospital real quick and see
Right.
what comes of it. But I don't know. It's tough to say with him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's validity to it. If there's anybody in the league that I would not put it past, it would be Aaron Rodgers. I'll just leave it at that. I don't actually I'll let you know what I think when he actually steps foot on the field and plays again. I still think there's a possibility he doesn't play this year. I think it could just be another, shot in the dark, like trying to bring attention back to himself too. So depends on which way it goes. If he actually steps foot in the field, then I'm hard pressed to believe um, that he actually tore his Achilles. 'Cause like you said, like I wake up in the morning and if I slept the wrong way, like I'm out for a week, and that's just sleeping. If I hurt myself doing any physical activity, I just bury me in the backyard. I'm done. But you know, not saying I'm cut from the same cloth as Aaron Rodgers, but seems a bit odd to me.
Yeah, if he comes back, I'll give him props. If not, I'm gonna write it
Yeah,
off as a whole publicity thing
yeah, sure.
and just
So
enjoy watching Tim Boyle bury their team into the ground.
can't bury him any deeper than Zach Wilson did.
I did hear another conspiracy that he's rushing to come back to basically save the coaching staff's jobs, like Nathaniel Hackett, Robert Sala, make sure they don't drop Alan Lazard and things like that, because all these people came over for him basically, and maybe not
That's
Sala, but
true. Yeah.
maybe he wants to save
Yeah.
their jobs. Like, hey, this is what we could do if we had Aaron Rodgers, but instead you gave us Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, and this is the results.
Yeah, there's too many questions that I think I actually need to see him play before I make a decision. But I'm leaning toward I like to put my tinfoil hat on every now and again. I'm gonna say yeah, he's faking it. Yeah.
Got us so good.
What do you have next?
Oh well, you know what I have.
I
So
do.
every week, we cast a NFL player or former player or personality as a DC character. DC being your Batman, Superman world. This week's question was, what NFL personality is Bane? So I wrote some notes on Bane. He's the yoked guy in Dark Knight Rises that breaks Batman's back. So I did a little Wikipedia on him. It says Bane spent his childhood in an adult prison. In prison, he developed skills, learned to fight, and got really buff. Fights Batman and wins. In my opinion, it's a true underdog story from the prisons into this yoked villain. And then he has that famous quote in Dark Knight Rises: "You think darkness is your ally? I was born in it." That was
It's
actually
pretty
pretty
good.
good. I like that one.
Yeah,
Maybe I should
that's
talk
pretty
in a
good.
Bane voice for the remainder of the episode. But
Thank
anyway,
God it's almost over.
so who do you have as your NFL Bane?
Well, you know, from the perspective of a Steeler fan, I chose this particular individual who is a villain. He is yoked. He's a pretty damn good football player, but I still hate him. Myles Garrett,
Oh,
defensive
thank God.
end for the Cleveland Browns.
I thought you were about to say who I had.
No, I thought maybe you might have this guy too. It was the first name that popped into my head, when I thought about Bane. He's a true villain to the Steelers, which, it's a true villain to me. Um, but yeah, if the Steelers are Batman, he's beaten Batman a time or two, but we've got him in the end. So yeah, Myles Garrett.
That's a good pick. Pettit went with Brian Urlacher. So if you know what Brian Urlacher looks like, he looks like Bane without a mask
Yeah.
on. And he was a villain to a lot of people. He was a mean linebacker, probably one of the best ones to ever play the game. So Pettit went with Brian Urlacher. For me, I'm gonna start talking about this guy. Just whenever you know who I'm talking about, just interject. All right,
Okay.
this individual was undrafted in 2002, was cut by the team he signed for twice over 2 years, signed with another team cut by them again. Then he got signed by the previous team that cut him twice already. In 2007, he finally got his first start. And after his first start, he went 5 straight seasons with Pro Bowl campaigns, was the Defensive Player of the Year one of those years, and had one of the most iconic moments in Super Bowl history with an interception return touchdown. And in 2011, he was out of a game, and the lights went out in the stadium, and he tweeted, "If I can't play, then nobody can play. Lights out." Do you know who I'm
So
talking about?
I knew who you were talking about right from the beginning, but I just love hearing what, I grew up with this guy. Had his jersey. He's one of my favorite players of all time, Debo James Harrison.
That is absolutely correct. So to arrive at this point, I Googled meanest NFL players, and he was ranked like number 5. I just saw his picture, and I was like, that's Bane. Like, that dude is scary. And then
He's
I started
terrifying.
reading.
He's still terrifying to this day.
I started reading up on him, like trying to associate him with Bane, like spend his childhood. Like, he was really Bane was really suppressed, like in childhood in prison. This guy undrafted, keeps getting cut, just keeps getting beat down, and then he comes back as just this yoked Pittsburgh fan favorite. So James Harrison, I really hope people listen to this podcast and they agree with me, and I win the vote for who is Bane. But
I
they'll
mean,
probably look at
yeah,
Brian Urlacher and be like, "Oh, well, he looks like Bane." So,
no, I like. I'm going to vote for you this week. I like your pick better than
yes.
mine. I love James Harrison. Just ask Colt McCoy and Muhammad Massaquoi what they think of James Harrison. They'll, yeah. If you can't ask them, they might still be unconscious somewhere. So, um, that was a good pick. I do have one more little tidbit for garbage time. If you
Oh,
didn't have the opportunity to, well, okay. Preface this: I'm a huge hockey fan. I missed the Penguin game tonight to record this podcast, and just so happens we missed a goalie goal. Penguins goalie Tristan Jarry scored a goal tonight on an empty netter. It happens maybe, it's been like once a year for the last couple of years, but maybe less than 50 times in NHL history. So it's a little fun. If you get a chance, watch the clip. It's cool. I just watched
oh,
it. Sad I
nice
missed it.
job. Nice job, Tristan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
instead
that's
I
all I
got
have.
this bum Thursday night game going on where the Seahawks are about to score again. I'm about to lose my money. Anyway,
Oh boy. Good old Cowboys.
well, that wraps up our show today. If you enjoyed the show, we made you money, or you have a pulse, please click the listener support button found on our Twitter profile information or on Spotify to help us grow our platform. Next week, we give you week 14 fantasy advice, winning DFS lineups, and betting locks. You can find us on Twitter at just3dads, lineups, locks, and loot. Out.